Alright, so here's the deal. The Broncos came out looking like they were ready to shock everyone. In the first half, they were all over the Chiefs, holding the lead, making big plays. Honestly, it looked like they were about to pull off something huge. But then, the second half started, and it was like watching a different team. All of a sudden, they just couldn't get anything going. Those plays that worked in the first half? Gone. That lead? Gone. It was rough. So, what the heck happened? How did they go from taking charge to barely keeping up? Let's dive into what went down and try to figure out why the Broncos just couldn't keep it together in those last two quarters. Oh, quick thing. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, okay? We're all about AFC West news on this channel, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. Alright, let's start with how things looked at the beginning, because honestly, the Broncos came out swinging. They hit the Chiefs with an energy that nobody saw coming. Bo Nix, their rookie quarterback, was out there playing like a seasoned pro. He was making sharp throws, moving the offense down the field, and really putting pressure on Kansas City. It felt like the Broncos had a game plan, and they were sticking to it perfectly. And it wasn't just about flashy plays either. They were chewing up the clock, keeping Mahomes and the Chiefs' offense on the sidelines and controlling the pace of the game. By halftime, Denver was up, and it looked like they had the Chiefs right where they wanted them. Fans were pumped. It was a great start. But as we all know, games aren't won in the first half. Still, you've got to give the Broncos credit. They set the tone early and showed up ready to play. But as strong as they came out, things were about to take a major turn. So, halftime ends and everyone's thinking, alright, can the Broncos actually pull this off? But right from the start of the second half, you could feel something shift. The Chiefs came out fired up, and suddenly Denver's control over the game just wasn't there anymore. It was like the Broncos couldn't find that same spark they had in the first half. Kansas City's defense started dialing up the pressure, making Bo Nix rush his throws and forcing Denver to adjust. And honestly, the Broncos seemed caught off guard. They weren't getting the same clean looks they had in the first half, and that early rhythm they had was completely gone. Plays that worked in the first two quarters were now getting stuffed or blown up. It wasn't just the Chiefs stepping up, it was also Denver struggling to keep their momentum. It was almost like they shifted gears too soon, trying to protect the lead instead of pushing forward. And that's where it all started slipping away. Now, let's talk about how the Chiefs turned up the heat in the second half. Kansas City's defense came out looking like they'd had enough. They started pressuring Bo Nix hard, and he suddenly didn't have the time or space he'd had earlier. You could see the difference. It went from Denver controlling the field to Nix scrambling to make something happen. And that's exactly what the Chiefs wanted. Kansas City's defense started mixing up their looks, forcing the Broncos to second-guess every snap. They tightened up their coverage, closed down those easy passing lanes, and brought some real intensity to the line of scrimmage. The Broncos went from smooth and steady to just trying to survive each down. This adjustment by the Chiefs put Denver in a tough spot. They couldn't keep the ball moving, drives stalled, and any hope of keeping Kansas City's offense off the field pretty much disappeared. The Broncos had no answer, and the Chiefs took full advantage. Alright, here's where it really started to fall apart for Denver. They had some golden chances to keep themselves in the game, but they just couldn't capitalize. Whether it was a dropped pass, a penalty that set them back, or just plain bad timing, the Broncos let a lot of opportunities slip through their fingers. One of the big ones? They had a shot to convert on third down multiple times, but just couldn't get it done. Those were chances to keep drives alive, to wear down the Chiefs' defense, and to possibly put points on the board. But every time they fell short, it was like they handed the momentum right back to Kansas City. The Broncos' run game, which was so strong in the first half with 85 yards, stalled out completely. Kansas City clamped down, holding them to just 40 rushing yards in the second half. Without that balance, Denver was forced to rely on Nix's arm, which, under that kind of pressure, led to mistakes. It was a rough half, and you could see every missed chance piling up as Kansas City gained more control. And just when it seemed like the Broncos might pull off a last-second upset, we got the play of the night, the one that flipped everything. With only seconds left, the Broncos lined up for a 35-yard field goal that would have handed them the win. It was all down to this moment. The whole stadium was on edge. Kansas City's 15-game win streak was in serious danger, and the Broncos had a shot to steal the game. Broncos kicker Will Lutz stepped up, ready to take what could be the winning shot. Chiefs fans held their breath, and Kansas City's defense knew it was all or nothing. The snap, the kick, it was up. But then, out of nowhere, Mike Danna came flying in. He timed it perfectly, got his hand up, and blocked the kick. The crowd erupted. The Chiefs had done it. That block sealed the victory. securing Kansas City's narrow win and leaving the Broncos stunned. Danna's play wasn't just a defensive highlight, it was the game-winning moment, the one that saved Kansas City's streak and proved that this defense can deliver in the clutch. And then there were the penalties. You can't win close games with sloppy mistakes, and the Broncos had a few that came at the worst times. Every little misstep just piled up, making it harder and harder to keep their early lead. By the time they tried to make up for it, it was too late. The Chiefs had taken control, and the Broncos were left scrambling. With the Broncos struggling, the Chiefs did what they do best. They took advantage. Mahomes and the offense didn't need to go for anything flashy. Instead, they played smart, moved the ball methodically, and took what the Broncos' defense gave them. Mahomes was efficient, completing 28 of 35 passes for 310 yards, and when he needed a big play, he turned to his go-to guy, Travis Kelce. Kelce was a game-changer, hauling in 10 receptions for 120 yards and a critical touchdown. That touchdown wasn't just any score, it tied Kelce with Tony Gonzalez for the most career touchdowns in Chiefs' history, a huge moment that couldn't have come at a better time. Together, Mahomes and Kelce picked apart the Broncos' defense, and you could feel the game slipping further and further away from Denver with every completion. By the time the Chiefs took the lead, it felt like the Broncos were just hanging on. Kansas City did exactly what good teams do. They kept their foot on the gas and never gave Denver a chance to recover. So after a game like this, you've got to wonder, what's next for the Broncos? They showed some serious potential in the first half, but that second half exposed a lot of issues they'll need to fix. For one, they need to figure out how to keep the momentum going for all 4 quarters. It's not enough to just come out strong, they've got to finish strong too. The Broncos also need to work on keeping their composure under pressure. When the Chiefs started pushing back, it looked like Denver got rattled. Instead of staying aggressive, they shifted to playing it safe, and that's when things started slipping. Finding that balance between protecting a lead and staying competitive is something they'll have to nail down. And then there's the discipline factor. Those penalties, those missed third down conversions, these are the little things that add up in a game. If Denver can tighten up on these fronts, they'll be a much tougher team to beat. They've got the pieces. Now it's just about putting it all together. So what does this game really tell us about these two teams moving forward? For the Broncos, it's clear they have potential. They showed that in the first half. But if they want to stay competitive, they need to figure out how to bring that energy through an entire game. Consistency and discipline are going to be key for them, especially if they want to compete with top teams like Kansas City. As for the Chiefs, this game was a reminder that they're not invincible. Sure, they pulled off the win, but they had to dig deep for it. They can't afford to let teams jump out to an early lead, and while they've got the talent to pull off comebacks, relying on it every time is risky. This win should give them confidence, but it's also a call to tighten up any weak spots before they hit the postseason. In the end, this matchup gave both teams a lot to think about. For the Broncos, it's about building on the good and fixing the mistakes. For the Chiefs, it's about staying sharp and not letting their guard down. Only time will tell if they'll make the adjustments they need.